Let's start. Now, before going to the break, we were discussing earthquake management, and here in the chat, I have sent you the initiatives taken for disaster management in India. We'll discuss those initiatives also. I have written that, and I have sent it to you. That what are the initiatives which have been taken for disaster management in India? Clear the and also worldwide the initiatives which has been taken. So 10-point agenda of Prime Minister, and also, but we'll discuss that. Let's first of all complete the earthquakes. Clear. Let's first of all complete the earthquakes. Now we have discussed that alert system has been established in US, Taiwan, and Japan. And how it is, on what it is based? Now it is based on the time difference between P and the S waves. Right on. There is a time difference of time difference of 11 to 15 minutes. There is a time difference of 11 to 15 minutes. 11 to 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Between the P and the S waves. P and the S waves. And we are affected by which waves? We are affected by the S waves. The P and the S waves. 11 to 15 minutes between the P and the S waves. P and the S waves. Primary and the surface waves. In these regions, a dense network of small observatories have been established. In these regions, a dense network of small observatories have been established. To register the time difference between, not to register the time difference, write down to registers when P waves occur. To register when P waves occur. And this message is communicated. To faraway areas for the purpose of evacuation. And this message is communicated to faraway areas for the purpose of evacuation. See, you cannot save your property, but at least you can save life. See, for disaster management, there's a book by Ministry of Home Affairs itself. You can look into that book and look into the latest edition of that book, Disaster Management in India. The book is titled by Ministry of Home Affairs. Everything you'll get in that book, but you have to update it with contemporary issues. For purpose of, so 11 to 15 minutes is enough to save your life, but it's not enough to save your property. Clear? So 11 to 15 minutes, that can be done. So this is how the alert system works. And as far as earthquake resistant building is concerned, the first precautionary measure in earthquake resistant building is to develop a mismatch between the frequency of seismic waves and that of the building. Right on. The first precautionary measure for earthquake resistant building, is to develop a mismatch between frequency of seismic waves and that of the buildings. Frequency of seismic waves and that of the buildings. Frequency of seismic waves and that of the buildings. And how this mismatch can be developed? It can be developed by using wooden structure in joints. Write down. It can be developed by using. It can be developed by using wooden structure in joints. It can be developed by using wooden structure in joints. Wooden structures in joints. In joints. And remember that this should not be nailed, but instead should be grooved. Write down. It should be grooved. It should be grooved and not nailed. It should be grooved and not nailed. Clear? This can be done. And as far as earthquake resistant building is concerned, there are two methods of its making. One is called as base isolation technique, and second is use of vibration dampers. Write down. Earthquake resistant buildings. Earthquake resistant buildings. Earthquake resistant buildings can be developed. Can be developed using two techniques. Using two techniques. First, base isolation method. First, base isolation method. And second, use of vibration dampers. Use of vibration dampers. Base isolation method and use of vibration dampers. Vibration dampers. Use of vibration dampers. Clear? Now in the first case, we are responsible for separating the building from the surface using cylinders, ball bearings, etc. Right down. In the first case, the building is separated from the surface. The building is separated from the surface using cylinders, ball bearings, cylinder, ball bearings, or springs. Cylinder, ball bearings, or springs. But we can see in the second case, vibration dampers are used like carbon fibers, which would be absorbing the seismic waves. Right down. In the second case, vibration dampers like carbon fibers are used. Vibration dampers like carbon fibers are used. Carbon fibers are used. Vibration dampers like carbon fibers are used. And they would be responsible for what? They would be responsible for absorbing the seismic waves. Right down. They are responsible for absorbing the seismic waves. They are responsible for absorbing the seismic waves. Absorbing the seismic waves. Clear? So this would be developed. Absorbing the seismic waves. But do remember that as far as relief measures are concerned, we can use what? We can use snaking robots. So robots would be just like snakes. They are in the form of a snake. They would be penetrating inside the debris, and they would be sending signals whether the person is trapped inside it or not. Or it can be in the form of what? It can be in the form of UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. So unmanned aerial vehicles would be responsible for what? It would be responsible for unmanned aerial vehicles would be responsible for also sending frequencies to detect that the person who is trapped inside the debris can be recovered as such. So that can be done. Right down. For relief measures, snaking robots, for relief measures, snaking robots, and UAVs, that is unmanned aerial vehicles. Snaking robots and UAVs can be used. This much in earthquake management. Earthquake management. See, when you talk about two big disasters of India are floods and droughts. Now, as far as floods is concerned, Floods mainly occur, the two areas which are mainly engulfed by flood include what? It includes the river Ganga region and also the river Brahmaputra region. So river Ganga region and river Brahmaputra region are the two regions affected by floods. But as far as floods are concerned, there are many reasons behind floods in India. One reason, natural reason is also there. Silting of rivers is the cause of floods. Meandering of rivers is the cause of floods. Flash floods can occur due to cloud bursting. It can occur due to dam bursting. It can occur due to tsunami. It can occur due to tropical cyclones. So all these would be considered as cause of floods. But recently we can see that non-adherence to rule curve, non-adherence to rule curve means, is also one of the reasons behind floods which have taken place recently. And what is rule curve? Rule curve is a set of guidelines according to which the dam should be filled and the dam should be emptied. The dam should be filled and the dam should be emptied. So that's called as what? That's called as rule curve. So it should be, if suppose we are responsible for filling the dam immediately after it rains, then there won't be any buffer space remaining to accommodate the subsequent rainfall. So it would be resulting in floods. So rule curve says that the dam should be filled preferably by the end of monsoon, and preferably by the end of monsoon means that there should be a buffer space left, in the dams, clear, to accommodate surplus water. A buffer space should be left in the dams to accommodate surplus water. So that's called as a rule curve. That is referred to as a rule curve. Fine. Now we are not adhering to the rule curve which is responsible for floods. But the floods which occur due to cloud bursting or dam bursting is referred to as flash floods. So let's see how cloud bursting takes place. Write down floods. The two main regions affected by floods in India. The two main regions affected by floods in India. Affected by floods in India. Floods in India is the Ganga region. Is the Ganga region. River Ganga region. Is the river Ganga region. And river Brahmaputra region. River Ganga region and river Brahmaputra region. These are two regions affected by floods. River Ganga region and river Brahmaputra region. The main cause of floods in India, include silting of rivers. The main cause of floods in India include silting of rivers, meandering of rivers, silting of rivers, meandering of rivers, cloud bursting, excessive rainfall, dam bursting, tropical cyclones. All these are the reasons. Tsunamis. So all these are the reasons behind flood in India. But we can see that recent floods in India have taken place due to non-adherence to rule curve. Write down. The floods have recently occurred in India also. The floods have recently occurred in India also. Due to non-adherence to rule curve. And what is rule curve? Rule curve is a set of guidelines according to which the dam should be filled and the dam should be emptied. Write down. It is a set of guidelines according to which the dam should be filled. The dams should be filled and emptied. The dam should be filled and emptied. Clear? But we can see the dam should be preferably filled by the end of monsoon so that there is a buffer space left for accommodating surplus water. Write down. The dam should be filled. The dam should be filled. Dam should be filled by the end of monsoon. By the end of monsoon. The dam should be filled by the end of monsoon so that there is a buffer space remaining. So that there is a buffer space remaining. To accommodate surplus water. This is rule curve that you should be filling the dam by the end of the monsoon so that there is a space left to accommodate the surplus water which would be coming through subsequent rainfalls. Clear? So all these are the reasons behind floods. Now we can see that as far as cloud busting is concerned, cloud busting or dam busting would be responsible for what? It would be responsible for flash floods. Write down. Cloud busting and dam busting. Cloud busting and dam busting. Cloud busting and dam busting. And dam busting. Would be responsible for cloud busting or dam busting and dam busting, not or, and dam busting would be responsible for flash floods. And do remember that flash floods, water gushes out at a very high speed. So it won't be responsible for surcharging the underground water table. So it gushes out at a very high speed, and this is not fruitful for us. Now, as far as cloud busting is concerned, the most vulnerable area for cloud busting is the Himalayas. Clear? As far as cloud busting is concerned. So, if suppose we talk about cloud busting, we can see that the vulnerability is very high for Himalayas. Clear? And why it is very high for Himalayas? It is very high for Himalayas because of steep slopes. And let's understand cloud busting through a figure. That if suppose these are the slopes of Himalayas, here are the slopes of Himalayas. So when cloud busting is taking place, the slopes of Himalayas. Now, when what happens is that when monsoon rains strike the steep slopes of Himalayas, suppose the monsoon rains are there, they are responsible for striking the steep slopes of Himalayas. It comes like this. Now, this monsoon rainfall, suppose we say that these are the Himalayas, the steep slopes of Himalayas, monsoon rain, which is filled with moisture, strikes the steep slopes of Himalayas. It would be ascending upwards. And when it ascends upward, it would be responsible for what? It would be responsible for sudden condensation. Sudden condensation takes place. And not only sudden condensation, but also we can see that not only sudden condensation is taking place, I write over here, condensation takes place, but it also enhances electrostatic induction. It also is responsible for enhancing electrostatic induction. Clear, sudden condition. And when electrostatic induction is enhanced, what will happen is lightning would occur. And if lightning is taking place, this is a type of hyper energy which is trapped inside the clouds. Now, this would be making the water molecules more denser. And this water molecule would be falling down in the form of precipitation. Falling down in the form of precipitation. This type of precipitation is called as what? It is called as Langmuir precipitation. This type of precipitation is called as what? It is referred to as Langmuir precipitation. Langmuir precipitation. Fine. This type of precipitation is referred to as Langmuir precipitation. And here what happens? Small droplet of water would be combining with each other to form a larger droplet of water. And this larger droplet of water would be coming to the surface with a thumping noise, which is often frightening in nature. Clear? This is how cloud bursting takes place. But for cloud bursting, what should be done? We should be responsible for what? We should be responsible for, because cloud bursting is followed by heavy rainfall and landslides. So we would be responsible for what? We would be responsible for properly maintaining the drains, because clogging of the drains results in what? Results in sudden accumulation of water, and it would be resulting in sudden flash floods. Second thing is that in these areas, settlement should not be established. And if at all settlements need to be established, they should be established on most modern techniques. And most modern techniques of minimum load and waste disposal. This should be done. They should be established on most modern technique of minimum load and waste disposal. So that should be done. Well, that should be done. And as far as it is concerned, most modern technique of minimum load and waste disposal. So that should be done. And as far as cloud bursting is concerned, we should also be remembering one more thing, that one more thing can be done, and that is that there is a device which is called as Doppler radar. Doppler radar is used for forecasting heavy rainfall. So this can be used for cloud bursting. Cloud bursting. So when you have written that flash floods occur due to cloud bursting and dam bursting, let's explain what is cloud bursting. The vulnerability of Himalayas is very high for cloud bursting. The vulnerability of Himalayas is very high for cloud bursting due to steep slopes. Due to steep slopes. Steep slopes. When monsoon wind, not rain, when monsoon wind filled with moisture, when monsoon wind filled with moisture strikes the steep slopes of Himalayas, when monsoon wind filled with moisture strikes the steep slopes of Himalayas, it would be ascending upwards. It would be ascending upwards. Ascending upwards. Ascending upwards. Due to which sudden condensation. Due to which sudden condensation. And enhancement of electrostatic induction. Due to which sudden condensation and enhancement of electrostatic induction takes place. And enhancement of electrostatic induction takes place. So we can see enhancement of electrostatic induction results in lightning, and lightning would be trapped inside the clouds in the form of what? In the form of hyper energy. Write down enhancement of electrostatic induction. enhancement of electrostatic induction, enhancement of electrostatic induction, results in results in results in lightning, enhancement of electrostatic induction results in lightning which is trapped inside the cloud, which is trapped inside the cloud in the form of hyper energy, which is trapped inside the cloud in the form of hyper energy, trapped inside the cloud in the form of hyper energy, making the water molecules more denser in the form of hyper energy, making the water molecules more denser, making the water molecules more denser, and they fall down, and they fall down, and they fall down in the form of precipitation, and they fall down in the form of precipitation, in the form of precipitation, precipitation. And this type of precipitation is called as what? It is referred to as Langmuir precipitation, where small droplets of water combine together to form a larger droplet of water. Write down this type of precipitation. This type of precipitation is referred to as. This type of precipitation is referred to as Langmuir precipitation. Langmuir precipitation. This type of precipitation is referred to as Langmuir precipitation, where small droplets of water, where small droplets of water combine together to form a larger droplet, you can see, and this would be coming to the surface with a thumping sound, larger droplet. And do remember that as far as cloud bursting is concerned, cloud bursting would be followed by heavy rainfall and landslides. Write down cloud bursting is followed by heavy rainfall and landslides. Cloud bursting is followed by heavy rainfall and landslides. Heavy rainfall and landslides. Heavy rainfall and landslides. Cloud bursting is followed by heavy rainfall and landslides. Clear? So it is followed by what? It is followed by heavy rainfall and landslides. Heavy rainfall and landslides. So cloud bursting. Fine. So this kind of precipitation is called as what? It is referred to as Langmuir precipitation. Is followed by heavy rainfall. Now for this purpose, what needs to be done? Write down for this purpose, the drainage system should be properly maintained. You can take a screenshot of this also, and then I'll remove this. For this purpose, the drainage system should be properly maintained. The drainage system should be properly maintained. System should be properly maintained. As clogging of drains, would result in, as clogging of drains would result in sudden accumulation of water, as clogging of drains would result in sudden accumulation of water, as clogging of drains would result in sudden accumulation of water, resulting in landslides, Write down, these settlements should be established. should be established. Should be established on most modern technique, on most modern technique, modern technique of minimum load, of minimum load and waste disposal, minimal load and waste disposal, minimum load and waste disposal. Because if suppose the waste disposal is high, then it would be responsible for clogging of drains, which would result in sudden accumulation of water, which can again trigger landslides, clear landslides. And then we can see that as far as uh, sorry, cloud busting is concerned, cloud busting was responsible for disasters like 2013 Uttarakhand tragedy. But also along with cloud busting, landslides should be covered. Now, as far as India is concerned, in India, we can see two areas are more vulnerable for landslides. Two areas. One is what? One is Himalayas, and second is Western Ghats. Now, the vulnerability of Western Ghat is why? Due to excessive rainfall. So, excessive rainfall is responsible for landslides in Western Ghat. As far as Himalayas is concerned, the vulnerability of Himalayas is due to natural factors, due to anthropogenic consideration also. Natural factors include what? Natural factors include there are a number of parallel folds in Himalayas. A number of parallel folds means a number of steep slopes. There are a number of parallel folds in Himalayas. That's one thing. Second thing is what? Not only number of parallel folds in Himalayas, but the second thing in Himalayas that you have to notice is what? Parallel folds in Himalayas. But the second thing that you have to notice in Himalayas is not only this. Himalayas are also prone to earthquakes. Earthquakes can result in landslides. Himalayas are also prone to earthquakes. Himalayas are also prone to cloud busting. Now, cloud busting can also result in landslides. But, so there are three natural factors one can say. 1, 2, 3. But the anthropogenic factors, anthropogenic reasons, which are responsible for enhancing the vulnerability of Himalayas includes what? Includes construction of dams and reservoirs. Construction of dams and reservoirs in Himalayas. Construction of biomedical industries. Biomedical industries in Himalayas. Construction of tourist centers in Himalayas. All these are responsible for enhancing soil erosion. Enhancing soil erosion. All these are responsible for enhancing soil erosion. And when soil erosion is enhanced, the vulnerability for landslides would be enhancing. So, enhancing soil erosion means vulnerability of landslides also enhanced. Vulnerability of landslides would be also enhanced. Landslides would be enhanced. To take a pic of this, all these reasons that I have written out, because we have less time, we have to cover up many things. Less time, we have to cover up many things. Clear? So that's how vulnerability would be enhancing. Now see, taken. Just remember that the severity of landslides, how severe the landslide is, the severity of landslide would be enhancing. If the cause of landslide is earthquake, So severity of landslides would be enhancing if the cause of landslide is not earthquakes. You can say avalanche, not earthquakes. So the severity of landslides would be enhancing if the cause of landslide is, write down the severity of landslides. The severity of landslides. You have taken this picture, taken screenshot of this. Now let's remove that. The severity of landslides. Severity of landslides would be enhancing. Would be enhancing if the cause of landslide. If the cause of landslide, the severity of landslide would be enhancing if the cause of landslide is an avalanche. Is an avalanche. The severity of landslides would be enhancing if the cause of landslide is avalanche. Clear? Avalanche is the cause of landslides. Remember, an avalanche is what? It's a moving snow. Now, this was reflected how? This was reflected in the Chamoli disaster of 2021. Clear? So, Chamoli disaster of 2021, severity of landslide. Now, what happened in this disaster? See, if we talk about Chamoli disaster, Chamoli disaster, what happened? There was a glacial. This was a glacier. This separated from a bedrock which was more than 3,000 meters deep. So from bedrock it separated. Now this resulted in what? This resulted in avalanche. That is movement of snow. But what happens when ice moves? And why is avalanche a water related disaster? When ice moves, from where water comes? The frictional force which is generated. So here is suppose the frictional force which is generated. Would be responsible for formation of water. Clear? So when avalanche takes place, the frictional force which is generated would be responsible for formation of water. And this water got accumulated. See, the debris which were emitted, were responsible for formation of artificial lake in which the water from the avalanche got accumulated, and this lake was also situated at the confluence of two rivers. One is what? One is Ranti and second was Rishiganga. So this was situated at the confluence of two rivers. But this artificial lake, it stayed for what? It stayed for minutes only. It bursted open. So this artificial lake stayed for minutes only and bursted open to wipe out Tapovan, and Vishnugad project, to wipe out Tapovan and Vishnugad hydroelectric project. Clear? This is how it occurred, Chamoli disaster, and that is of 2021. Chamoli disaster, which is of 2021. Everything has been depicted on the board. Take a screenshot of this. 2021. Everything has been depicted on the board. Chamoli disaster of 2021. Clear? Now see, when Tapovan and Vishnugad project were established, there were two canals also established. One canal was made when it was established. One canal was, it was 12 kilometers in length. So the water which was generated and which was formed due to the busting of the artificial lake got accumulated in this canal, and this canal was made of a length of 12 kilometers when Vishnugarh or Tapovan hydroelectric project were established. Clear? So this canal was made. So it got accumulated there. And what happened was that the company which was responsible, we won't be naming the company which was responsible for establishing the Vishnugarh and Tapovan project, they had their boring machine trapped inside the canal. They had their boring machine trapped inside the canal. Recently, what they tried to do, they tried to access that machine. Access that machine. And when they tried to access that machine, it led to the Josimat tragedy. So cracks developed in Josimat, and also from the cracks of the road, muddy water. So this led to what? This led to the Josimat tragedy of 2023. So Chamoli disaster is the main reason behind Josimat. So cracks developed on the walls, and also because of this blasting, and also from the cracks developed on the roads, muddy water started to gush out. Muddy water started to flow out. And when this muddy water started to flow out, then we can see Josimat tragedy occurred. But Josimat tragedy, you can take a screenshot of this also, then we move forward. But Josimat tragedy is an example of what? It is an example of land subsistence. Land. Let me write down and then take land subsistence. And land subsistence can take place due to how? It can take place due to blasting. It can take place due to improper mining activity. Mining activity. It can take place due to earthquakes. Earthquakes. All these are the reason behind blasting, improper mining activity, earthquakes, environmental degradation. Environmental degradation. Degradation. Then underground fires. Underground fires. All these are the reasons behind land subsistence. So Josimat tragedy is nothing but an example of land subsistence which can take place due to many reasons. Many reasons. Raising of cattle on a large scale can be responsible for land subsistence, because when the cattle would be grazing the areas, then soil erosion would take place, which would be activating this. Clear? Fine. So all these are the reasons. And now take a pic of this. Everything depicted on the board. Fine. And now see. Done? Now see. As far as the general measures for flood management is concerned, the flood management measures include what? It includes flood proofing. Flood proofing means that the villages from low-lying areas should be shifted to that of a considerable height. See, I have told you, Josimat type of disasters, the factors which are responsible. Josimat is an example of what? Land subsistence. Land subsistence can take place due to improper mining activity. It can take place due to blasting. It can take place due to underground fires. It can take place due to earthquakes also. It can take place due to all these environmental degradation on a large scale. So all these factors have written: environmental degradation, blasting, improper mining activity, earthquakes, underground fire. Clear? In the case of Josimat, recently we can see which occurred, main factor was what? Blasting. Because blasting was conducted by the company to reach the device. To reach the device. And when it conducted blasting, then Josimat tragedy, cracks developed on the walls, and also not only the walls, we can see that cracks also developed on the roads from where muddy water started to gush out, and this muddy water was trapped when Chamoli disaster occurred. Clear? Now, as far as the general measures for flood management is concerned, what measures should be taken? The first measure is what? First measure is flood proofing. Write down measures for flood management. Measures for flood management. Flood management. And then we'll write the measures for landslide management, because in this we have discussed landslide also, the vulnerability of Himalayas and vulnerability of Western Ghats. First measure is for floods. First measure is what? First measure is flood proofing. Flood proofing. Flood proofing. And what does that mean? First measure. Flood proofing means, write down, the villages from low-lying areas. Villages from low-lying areas. Should be shifted to those at greater height. Should be shifted to those at greater height. And connected properly with roads. For the purpose of evacuation. And connected properly with roads for the purpose of evacuation. So this mechanism is called as what? This mechanism is called as flood proofing. Now the second mechanism is called as what? It is called as flood plain zoning. Floodplain zoning. Now what is floodplain zoning? Floodplain zoning means that the floodplain areas of the rivers are the exclusive areas of the rivers. So in the floodplain areas, we won't be responsible for establishing what? We won't be responsible for establishing any settlements. So the floodplain area should be properly demarcated, and they should be demarcated with embankments. Do not allow settlements in these areas. So this would be called as floodplain zoning. Write down, every river has a right of its own way. Every river has a right of its own way. River has a right of its own way. The floodplain areas should be properly demarcated. The floodplain areas should be properly demarcated. By establishing embankments for this purpose. The floodplain areas should be properly demarcated by establishing embankments for this purpose. And settlements should be disallowed in this area. Settlements should be disallowed in this area. Settlement should be disallowed in this area, because if you allow settlements in these areas, the vulnerability would be enhancing. So settlement should be disallowed in this area. Clear? Fine. So that's called as floodplain zoning. And the third measure which can be taken is that we can establish extra reservoir near dams, and should be kept empty to accommodate surplus water which can occur due to subsequent rainfall. Write down, an extra reservoir can be constructed near the dams, can be constructed near the dams, and should be kept empty, and should be kept empty, to be utilized, to be utilized when excessive rainfall occurs, to be utilized when excessive rainfall occurs, rainfall occurs. And we can see also that we would be using what we can use two parallel canals. See, if the Earth's magnetic, if the tilting of Earth's geomagnetic axis takes place, what would be the effect of its, see, geomagnetic effect? If it is tilted, then the duration of day and night would be also affected. Duration of day and night would be the first impact would be that, because the Earth rotates on its axis, day and night takes place. So the duration of day and night would be affected, and there can be many more other adverse impacts also, because the axis tilt also is responsible for the weather conditions, the climatic conditions. So you can see that the winter or summer duration would be also affected because of this. Extra reservoirs should be constructed near the dams and should be kept empty, and should be kept empty, to be utilized when excessive rainfall takes place, to be utilized when excessive rainfall takes place, excessive rainfall takes place. And see, not only this, we should be also responsible for establishing parallel canals, parallel canals, and parallel canals should be established near those areas which are more frequently affected by floods, to remove the surplus water. Right on. Parallel canals should be established, parallel canals should be established for those areas, for those areas regularly affected by floods, for those areas regularly affected by floods, regularly affected by floods, regularly affected by floods, affected by floods, regularly affected by floods, to remove the surplus water, to remove the surplus water. Then we can see also that we should be responsible for adherence to rule curve. Write down, rule curve should be adhered, rule curve should be adhered, rule curve should be adhered, adhered. Clear? We should be responsible for adhering the rule curve. So if we adhere the rule curve, the chances of floods would be less. And see, the National Flood Control Program was launched in the year 1952, 54. Since then, we have maintained a buffer stock of food grains for this purpose. Right on. A buffer stock of food grain, a buffer stock, a buffer stock of food grain, of food grains can be maintained for this purpose. A buffer stock of food grains can be maintained for this purpose, can be maintained for this purpose, and has been maintained in India, and has been maintained in India, has been maintained in India after the national flood control, after the flood control national flood control program 1954, after the national flood control program 1954, Flood Control Program 1954. 54. Clear. So this has been done. National Flood Control Program 1954. 1954. So all these measures, and do remember that interlinking of rivers project is a measure for both flood and drought management. Write down, interlinking of rivers project can also be used. Interlinking of rivers project can also be established for this purpose. Interlinking of rivers project can also be established for this purpose. And do remember that floods, whenever they occur, we can see it would be responsible for outbreak of epidemics. So team of doctors should be constantly maintained during this period. Write down, floods are responsible for outbreak of epidemics. Floods are responsible for outbreak of epidemics. Responsible for outbreak of epidemics. As such, a team of doctors, a team of doctors should be constantly maintained. A team of doctors should be constantly maintained. And supply of essential medicines. Essential medicines should also be properly regulated. And supply of essential medicines should also be properly regulated. See, when we talk about droughts in India, we can see that droughts, there are three types of droughts in India. All those areas which receive less than 750 mm of rainfall would be called as what? It would be referred to as drought prone areas. So these are referred to as drought prone areas. Receives less than 750 mm of rainfall would be referred to as drought prone areas first. And as far as drought management is concerned, you can see that three types of droughts in India, elsewhere in the world also. One is called as hydrological drought. Hydrological drought can occur due to what? It can occur due to absence of water sources. One is called as what? It is called as meteorological drought, which can happen due to absence of rainfall. And third is agricultural drought, which would be having its uh, third is agricultural drought. And this is nothing but a combination of both the hydrological and meteorological drought, which would be having its impact on crop cultivation. So that's called as what? That's called as the agricultural drought. And when we talk about drought management in India, we can see that first of all, when droughts occur, this is not only responsible for uh, loss of water table, but also it's responsible for salinization of soil. Not only vegetation cover would be lost, salinization of soil would take place. And reoccurring droughts, desertification, have enhanced the frequency of heat waves. And we have studied heat waves earlier, that what is heat wave and how jet stream is responsible for heat waves, because jet stream is responsible for creating a condition which is called as blocked weather pattern or omega weather pattern. We have discussed that. So that's also connected with heat wave. But all these happen due to droughts. Now, as far as drought management is concerned, first of all, we should be responsible for maintaining a database of number of people residing in that area, that is drought prone area, number of cattle, the stock of food grain, and also the stock of fodder. so that we know how many people would be affected, how many animal would be affected, and what we have at our disposal for feeding them. What we have at our disposal for feeding them. So that's drought. And as far as uh, the second thing is concerned, we should be responsible for also establishing perennial vegetation in that area. Perennial vegetation means those vegetation which can be responsible for water retention capacity of the soil. So, for example, red clover, for example, begonia, these are responsible for water retention capacity of the soil. So, when they are responsible for water retention capacity, the vulnerability of droughts would be reducing. And also, we can see that as far as droughts are concerned, employment generation schemes, whenever they are started, the priority should be given to those areas which are drought prone areas. Interlinking of rivers project and buffer stock of food grains can be used here also, that interlinking of rivers project should be established and buffer stock of food grains should be also there, so that those affected by droughts, they would be utilizing this buffer stock of food grains, so that can be also said. And as far as drought management is concerned, also remember that some state specific measures deserves attention. Although we would be using judicious use of surface water would be taking place, and we would be changing the pattern of irrigation also. We can use drip and sprinkle irrigation. But drip and sprinkle irrigation cannot be used for paddy cultivation, cannot be used for wheat cultivation. So in that case, we have to change the crop pattern also. But drip and sprinkle irrigation can be used. In this limelight, we can discuss some initiative taken by some states. For example, Rajasthan was responsible for starting a mission which was called as Mukhyamantri Jal Swablamban Yojana for reducing the vulnerability for droughts. The government of Uttar Pradesh, it declared that, because one of the biggest area is there, drought prone area, it declared that it would be providing the farmers of Bundelkhand region, the farmers of Bundelkhand region, subsidies if they cultivate those crops which are, if they are responsible for cultivating those crops which are less water intensive in nature. And you have studied climate adaptive agriculture in the contemporary terms. So the government of Maharashtra adopted the climate adaptive agriculture or climate resilient agriculture or climate smart agriculture for this purpose, for its distressed farmers. So all these steps can be written. Write down drought management. Drought management. Drought management. Any area which has less than 750 mm of rainfall, which has less than 750 mm of rainfall, would be called as drought prone area. Would be called as drought prone area. Drought prone area. Drought prone area. 750 mm of rainfall would be called as drought prone area. Clear? So that's, there are three types of droughts. Hydrological drought, which happens due to absence of rainfall, not rainfall, water sources. Hydrological drought which happens due to absence of water sources. Meteorological drought, which happens due to drought which happens due to absence of rainfall, absence of rainfall, absence of rainfall, and agricultural drought, and agricultural drought, which is a combination of both, an agricultural drought which is a combination of both, which is a combination of both, combination of both, and has its impact on crop cultivation, which is a combination of both and has its impact on crop cultivation, and has its impact on crop cultivation, impact on crop cultivation, impact on crop cultivation. Clear? Now, question you have asked me, interlinking of rivers means the organism living in different rivers merge and may cause environmental issues. Should be considered it? Yes, we considered it, and earlier also we considered it when we discussed interlinking of rivers project. That what are see sustainable sugarcane initiative means what? Sugarcane should be cultivated in those areas which is more water intensive in nature. Why? Because sugarcane itself is water intensive crops. If you cultivate sugarcane in those areas where water availability is less, the vulnerability for droughts would be enhancing. This happened in Maharashtra. The distress of Marathi farmers are why? Because they cultivated those crops which are water intensive in nature. Otherwise, if you compare Rajasthan with Maharashtra, now Rajasthan receives very less amount of rainfall when compared with Maharashtra. When compared with Maharashtra. So why should Maharashtra be vulnerable for droughts? The reason is obvious that in Maharashtra the farmers cultivate those crops which are uh, more water intensive in nature, sugarcane. Clear? So when you are talking about sustainable sugarcane initiative, it means that sugarcane should only be cultivated in those areas where there is abundance of water, so that it is not directly related to droughts. Clear? And in this also we can see that this is connected with the example that I have cited in Maharashtra. Meteorological drought and agricultural drought, which is a combination of both, which is a combination of both, and has its impact on crop cultivation, has its impact on crop cultivation. Reoccurring droughts, reoccurring droughts, grazing, reoccurring droughts, desertification, 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 reoccurring droughts, desertification is responsible for, desertification is responsible for, reoccurring droughts, desertification is responsible for enhancing, is responsible for enhancing heat waves too, responsible for enhancing heat waves too. The adverse impact of drought, the adverse impact of drought, adverse impact of drought is not only loss of, is not only loss of vegetation, loss of vegetation, but also, but also depletion of water table, depletion of water table, and salinization of soil, depletion of water table and salinization of soil. salinization of soil, water table and salinization of soil. Clear? Because if suppose the green water is lost from the soil, salts would be getting deposited in the soil, so it would be responsible for salinization of soil. For this purpose, for what needs to be done for this purpose? For this purpose, that is drought management. A database for this purpose, a database of number of persons residing in that area, a database of number of persons residing in that area, number of person residing in that area, persons residing in that area, number of cattle, number of cattle, number of cattle, number of cattle, stock of food grain, stock of food grain, food grains, stock of food grains, and stock of fodder, and stock of fodder, and stock of fodder should be maintained. Stock of food grains and stock of fodder should be maintained. Stock of, we are coming to coal mining, just remember, just wait for some time, we are coming to coal mining. Stock of fodder should be maintained, so this should be done. Number of persons residing in that area, number of cattle, stock of food grain and stock of fodder should be maintained. And not only this should be done, we should be also responsible for maintaining, we should be also responsible for establishing perennial vegetation in that area. Write down perennial vegetation in that area, perennial vegetation in that area, vegetation in that area, perennial vegetation in that area, like red clover, begonia, red clover, begonia. Perennial vegetation in that area like red clover, begonia should also be established. Should also be established. Now why? Because this is responsible for water retention capacity of the soil. Write down, as it is responsible for water retention capacity of the soil, as it is responsible for water retention capacity of the soil, retention capacity of the soil. So that should be done. And there should be judicious use of surface water, and not only surface water, underground water should be judicious use, and the pattern of irrigation should be changed. Not only water harvesting should be done on a large scale, but water harvesting has its own drawback. The state cannot water harvest for you alone. Participation of people is also required, but incentive for such participation is lacking. Clear? So that's one thing. Second thing is what? That where is the catchment area which can be used for water harvesting, because the catchment area which can be used for water harvesting has been highly encroached upon, and that is due to environmental degradation on a large scale. So the catchment area which should have been utilized for water harvesting has been highly encroached upon due to environmental degradation on a large scale. So that's another thing. Clear? Environmental degradation on a large scale. So that's another thing. Catchment area has been encroached upon. So these are the drawbacks of water harvesting. Write down. Although water harvesting can be used on a large scale, although water harvesting can be used on a large scale, water harvesting can be used on a large scale, but participation of people would be desirable. But participation of people would be desirable. And also, and also, the catchment area for this purpose, and also the catchment area for this purpose, catchment area for this purpose is missing. Catchment area for this purpose is missing due to degradation. Due to degradation. Now, we should also be responsible for not only this, we should be responsible for changing the pattern of irrigation, and the irrigation pattern can be changed. Irrigation pattern can be changed. So, drip and sprinkle irrigation can be used for this purpose. Drip and sprinkle irrigation can be used for this purpose. Fine. So, that can be done. Write down. Irrigation pattern can also be changed. Irrigation pattern can also be changed. Irrigation pattern can also be changed. And drip and sprinkle irrigation, and drip and sprinkle irrigation can be used for this purpose. And drip and sprinkle irrigation can be used for this purpose. Can be used for this purpose. Drip and sprinkle irrigation can be used for this purpose. Is that clear? Fine. So, that can be used for this purpose. Irrigation can be used for this purpose. Fine. And as far as drought management is concerned, we can see that see, in those areas where droughts have occurred, livelihood of people is a matter of concern. So, whenever employment generation scheme should be started, priority should be given to those areas which are drought prone. Write down. Whenever employment generation scheme should be started, whenever employment generation schemes are started, priority should be given to those areas. Priority should be given to those areas. Priority should be given to those areas. Should be given to those areas which are affected by droughts. Priority should be given to those areas which are affected by droughts. Affected by droughts. Clear? So, should be priority should be given to those areas which are affected by droughts. And we can also use interlinking of reverse project, and buffer stock of food grain can be used for this purpose also. Write down. Interlinking of reverse project. Interlinking of reverse project and buffer stock of food grains. Interlinking of reverse project and buffer stock of food grains. Buffer stock of food grains. Stock of food grains can be used for this purpose also. Buffer stock of food grains can be used for this purpose also. Can be used for this purpose also. But then your answer would be incomplete if you do not refer to some state specific or union specific measures. So, the government of India was responsible for launching the Jal Shakti Abhiyan for 255 water prone districts of India. Clear? So, where water harvesting would be conducted on a large scale. Right? The government of India launched, the government of India launched the Jal Shakti Abhiyan. The government of India launched the Jal Shakti Abhiyan. Jal Shakti Abhiyan. Jal Shakti Abhiyan for water harvesting. For water harvesting. In 255, in 255, 5 drought prone districts of India. In 255, drought prone districts of India. 255 drought prone districts of India. Jal Shakti Abhiyan in 255 drought prone districts of India. Fine, so this was launched. And we can see the government of Uttar Pradesh tried to provide incentives to farmers of Bundelkhand if they cultivate those crops which are less water intensive in nature. Less water intensive in nature. Right down. The government of Uttar Pradesh, the government of Uttar Pradesh, UP, the government of UP launched, the government of UP launched an initiative. Yes, artificial rainfall can be beneficial if suppose cloud seeding is done. And cloud seeding, you know, how can it be done? It can be done by pumping sulfate particles in atmosphere. So it can be done. Fine. The government of Uttar Pradesh provided subsidies to farmers. Subsidies to farmers of Bundelkhand region. Subsidies to farmers of Bundelkhand region. Of Bundelkhand region if they cultivate those crops. If they cultivate those crops which are less water intensive in nature. Less water intensive in nature. Which are less water intensive in nature. For example, sesame. For example, mustard. So why not cultivate? Yes, so artificial rainfall can be used beneficial for drought prone areas. But then the area is a large area. And we can see the government of Rajasthan was responsible for launching an initiative. And the initiative was called as what? Initiative was called as Mukhyamantri Jal Swablamban Yojana. And the purpose was water harvesting on a large scale by traditional methods like bawris, tankas, and also farm ponds and contour reservoir. Right now, the government of Rajasthan, the government of Rajasthan, government of Rajasthan, Rajasthan, the government of Rajasthan launched an initiative called Mukhyamantri Mukhyamantri Jal Swablamban Yojana. Mukhyamantri Jal Swablamban Yojana. Mukhyamantri Jal Swablamban Yojana. For reducing the vulnerability for droughts. For reducing the vulnerability for droughts. vulnerability for droughts, for reducing the vulnerability for droughts. And how this can be done? This can be done by using the traditional methods of water harvesting. Right on. For this purpose, the traditional methods of water harvesting were used. For this purpose, the traditional methods of water harvesting of water harvesting were used of water harvesting were used. For example, establishing tanka. Tanka means dug holes near the farms. Tankas, dug holes. Bowries. Bowries means what? Bowries means step wells. That is also used for water harvesting. Bowries. Tankas, Bowries. Contour reservoir. Contour reservoir means that if suppose the same elevation or the same depth is utilized for storing water, that is called as contour reservoir. Contour reservoir. So this was used. Tankas, Bowries, contour reservoirs. Fine. So these were used. Fine. And we can see not only this was done. Maharashtra government launched climate adaptive agriculture or climate smart agriculture for this purpose. Right on. The government of Maharashtra for this purpose, the government of Maharashtra for this purpose launched the climate adaptive agriculture. The climate adaptive agriculture. The climate adaptive agriculture. The government of Maharashtra for this purpose launched the climate adaptive agriculture. Climate adaptive agriculture. Is that clear? So all these should be included in drought management. See, when we talk about tropical cyclones, we can see tropical cyclones striking Indian coast originate from two places. One is what? One is Bay of Bengal. And second is what? Second is Arabian Sea. And the frequency of Bay of Bengal cyclone is more when compared to Arabian Sea. The ratio of their frequency is 4:1 because drainage of fresh water takes place in Bay of Bengal more when compared to saline water, and when compared to Arabian Sea also more fresh water because the east flowing rivers are there. And that's why we can see the vulnerability is very high for Bay of Bengal. So tropical cyclone originating from Bay of Bengal, their vulnerability is very high. Fine. But as far as tropical cyclone is concerned, tropical cyclone is what? It's a low pressure area. Low pressure area surrounded by a high pressure area. It's a low pressure area surrounded by a high pressure area. But the condition is there. And the condition is what? That the speed of wind should be above gale force. And gale force is what? Gale force is 62 km per hour. Clear? So that's gale force. So speed of the wind should be above the gale force. Then only it can be called as tropical cyclones. Clear? Yes, artificial rainfall can be beneficial, but then artificial rainfall can be done in a localized area. And drought affected area includes certainly a large region. So it would be beneficial for some part only. So this is called as what? And see, if we say super cyclone, what happens? The speed of the wind is above 200 km per hour. The speed of the wind is above 200 km per hour. And sometimes what happens? Mega cyclones takes place. Mega cyclone takes place how? It takes place due to an effect which is called as Fujiwara effect. Fujiwara effect. And Fujiwara effect means, let's suppose this is the LPA surrounded by HPA, surrounded by HPA, LPA surrounded by HPA. Sometimes the vortices of two cyclone, they converge and move as a single vortice. Now this effect, this results in the formation of mega cyclone, which is, and this effect when vortices of two cyclones converge, they merge, this is called as Fujiwara effect. This is referred to as Fujiwara effect. Fujiwara effect. Take a screenshot of this. Everything has been depicted on the board. See, as far as tropical cyclone is concerned, the impact of tropical, take a screenshot. The impact of tropical cyclone would be reduced if we forecast them on time. So as far as forecasting method is concerned, there can be many methods, modern techniques used for forecasting. And as far as modern techniques used for forecasting is concerned, that what are the modern techniques? For forecasting is concerned, one technique is called as what? It is called as SOP, that is standard operation procedure. Operation procedure. Now this was used for forecasting Felin cyclone on time. And a more advanced method than SOP is called as what? It is called as NWP, that is numerical weather prediction. NWP, numerical weather prediction. And as far as numerical weather prediction is concerned, NWP is concerned, numerical weather prediction, we can see that this is a mathematical technique. Mathematical technique. Mathematical approach. But how in SOP we are responsible for? Now SOP means what? SOP, you can take a pic of this also. SOP means, just wait, let me complete this SOP at least and then take a pic. SOP, standard operation procedure, it includes three components. Now the first component is called as satellite component. Now satellite component is used when the cyclone is far away in the sea. Let us complete this topic today. Satellite component would be used when the cyclone is far away. And for this purpose, we would be using satellite pictures to study. Satellite pictures would be used for study. So that's called as satellite component. That's the first component. Clear? The second component is called as what? The second component is called as, not the satellite component. The second component is referred to as radar component. Radar component. Radar component means what? Radar component means that when the radar, when the cyclone, see, the coastal areas of Arabian Sea is less because drainage of fresh water takes place more in Bay of Bengal. Clear? Because in India the rivers are east flowing rivers. So drainage of fresh water takes place more in Bay of Bengal when compared to Arabian Sea. Fine. When compared to Arabian Sea, they take place more in Bay of Bengal. And if it takes place more in Bay of Bengal, fresh water evaporates easily when compared to saline water. Easily when compared to saline water. So formation of low pressure area in Bay of Bengal would be more when compared to Arabian Sea. Bay of Bengal would be more when compared to Arabian Sea. Fine. So radar component. Now radar component would be used when the cyclone is within the radar range. If suppose it is within the radar range, then we'll use this component. Clear? And for this purpose, we use two different types of radars. Two different types of radars are used. First is what? A Doppler radar. Now, Doppler radar would be established near the coast. It's on the coast that it is established. At a greater height, it would be established. Doppler radar was also used for forecasting heavy rainfall due to cloud bursting. And the second radar which is used is called as what? It is called as floating radars. So this would be kept on the floating on the sea surface. So these two types of radars were used. And when the cyclone is within the radar range, so you can see three components are there. When the cyclone is within the radar range, the third component is used, and that is called as, sorry, when the cyclone is within the radar range, we are using radar component. But when this cyclone is about to strike the coastal areas, then we are using a third component, and this third component is called as what? It is called as synoptic component. Synoptic component. That's the third component, which is referred to as what? It is referred to as synoptic component. And synoptic component means what? Synoptic component means that in this way, there is a computer model which has a database of mid-latitudinal depressions. A database of mid-latitudinal depressions. So it has a database of mid-latitudinal depressions. And depressions are what? Depressions are low pressure areas. So it has a database of the mid-latitudinal depressions, and we can see on the basis of which the cyclone is studied. So there are three components: satellite components, second is radar component, and third is synoptic component. Synoptic component includes a computer model which is including a database of mid-latitudinal depressions. Fine. So that's called as, now this is used for forecasting cyclone. Just take a pic of this. Everything has been written on the board. No need of dictation in this. I have written everything on the board to save time. Clear? Take a pic. Fine. Now see, a more advanced technique than this is called as what? It is called as numerical weather prediction. Numerical weather prediction. That's a more advanced technique. Clear? And it's a mathematical approach we have discussed earlier. But this would be consisting of two indicators. One indicator is called as what? It is called as GPP. GPP stands for Genesis Potential Parameters. Genesis Potential Parameters. So GPP. Clear? And as far as GPP is concerned, Genesis Potential Parameter is concerned, we can see that the purpose is to ascertain that whether a low pressure area surrounded by a high pressure area can transform into a tropical cyclone or not. That's the reason for GPP, that whether a low pressure area surrounded by a high pressure area can transform into tropical cyclone or not. And for this purpose, what we would be doing, we would be registering the latitudinal and longitudinal position of low pressure area. So latitudinal and longitudinal position of low pressure area LPA would be registered, and this would be registered for 10 hours interval for 120 hours. This would be registered for 10 hours interval for 120 hours. Write down GPP, Genesis Potential Parameter. It is for the purpose of ascertaining whether. It is for the purpose of ascertaining whether. Low pressure area. Ascertaining whether low pressure area surrounded by high pressure area. Low pressure area surrounded by high pressure area can transform into tropical cyclone, or not. Can transform into tropical cyclone or not. Tropical cyclone or not. For this purpose, we would be registering. The latitudinal and longitudinal position of low pressure area. For this purpose, we would be registering the latitudinal and longitudinal position of low pressure area. Latitudinal and longitudinal position of low pressure area surrounded by high pressure area. Longitudinal position of low pressure area surrounded by high pressure area at 10 hours interval. 10 hours interval for 120 hours. And then we come to know whether it is transforming into tropical cyclone or not. Clear? This is called as GPP. Now the other indicator of NWP, that's numerical weather prediction, is what? It is called as RII. That stands for what? It stands for Rapid Intensification Index. Rapid Intensification Index. Now what is the meaning of Rapid Intensification Index? Now this is for the purpose of measuring the intensity of tropical cyclone. Write down. It is for the purpose of measuring the intensity of tropical cyclone. And how it would be done? It would be done by registering the speed of wind at 6 hours interval for 36 hours. And it would be done by registering the speed of wind. It would be done by registering the speed of wind, at 6 hours interval, at 6 hours interval for 36 hours, at 6 hours interval for 36 hours, for 36 hours. Is that clear? So registering the speed of wind at 6 hours interval for 36 hours. That would be done. "36 hours." Fine. And then we come to know that whether it's a tropical cyclone or not. See, one precautionary measure is that the settlements in the coastal area should be established at least 5 kilometers away from the coast. Right down. Human settlement should be established. Human settlement should be established at least 5 kilometers away from the coast. Human settlement should be established at least 5 kilometers away from the coast. At least 5 kilometers away from the coast. 5 kilometers away from the coast. Fine. So that should be done. 5 kilometers away from the coast. And we can see the government of Odisha has established early warning dissemination system for this purpose also. That's used for tropical cyclone and tsunamis as well. And we can see that EWDIS, early warning dissemination system, means what? That along the coastline of Odisha, from the towers are used for giving direction to the ship, sirens would be blown for the purpose of evacuation, that people be alerted, and text messages would be sent to fishermen, right on, for tropical cyclones and tsunamis. For tropical cyclones and tsunamis. And text messages would be sent to fishermen so that they return back from the high sea. For tropical cyclones and tsunamis. Tropical cyclones and tsunamis. For tropical cyclones and tsunamis. Government of Odisha has established EWDS. Government of Odisha has established EWDS. That is early warning dissemination system. Early warning dissemination system. And what is that? That is from the coast, from the towers which are situated on the coast of Odisha, right down, under which sirens would be blown, from the towers on the coastal region of Odisha. From the towers on the coastal regions of Odisha. Sirens would be blown from the towers on the coastal region of Odisha for coastal region of Odisha for evacuation purpose. Evacuation purpose. And text messages would be given to fishermen, and text messages would be given to fishermen. Fisher means that they should return back. They should return back. Fine. So all these things, text messages should be given to fishermen so that they return back from the high sea. Now, as far as tsunami is concerned, we can see that when you talk about tsunami, now tsunami takes place mainly why? Because of seismic activities. One reason is seismic activities. That's the main reason, that seismic activities are responsible for tsunami. Clear. But it can also take place due to falling of a meteorite. Falling of a meteorite. It can also take place due to landslides in oceans. Landslides in oceans. Clear. So all these are responsible for tsunami. But the main reason how tsunami takes place, the main factor which is responsible for tsunami is what? It is the oceanic seismic activities which is responsible for tsunami. These are the reasons. Clear. Reasons behind tsunami in anywhere in the world. Reasons behind tsunami to take place. Clear. So main reason is oceanic seismic activity. And then we can see meteors also, meteorite also, landslides in oceans also. All these are the reasons. But when you talk about tsunamis, we can see that there are two subduction arcs in the coastal area of India. This is suppose India, this is Sri Lanka. Here is Andaman and Nicobar Sumatra subduction arc. Andaman and Nicobar Sumatra subduction arc. And over here, there is another subduction arc which is called as Makaran, that is Arabian Sea. Makaran subduction arc. So vulnerability of India, when you talk about that, why is India vulnerable for tsunami? Vulnerability of India is because of these two subduction arcs. Clear. The vulnerability of India is due to these two subduction arcs. One is the Makaran subduction arc, and second is what? Second is the Andaman and Nicobar subduction arc. And this subduction arc, the Andaman and Nicobar subduction arc, was responsible for 2004 tsunami. 2004 tsunami. Now 2004 tsunami is considered to be what? It is called as 2004 tsunami. When we are referring to as 2004 tsunami, now this tsunami is referred to as mega tsunami because of the high amount of energy that it generated. High energy generated. It is also called as tele tsunami. Tele tsunami, why we are saying? Because this was responsible for what? This was responsible for tele tsunami affecting far-flung areas, far away areas. And then we can see that this was also called as what? It was also called as Boxer tsunami. We won't be, but it was also called as Asian tsunami. But when this occurred, we can see the regions of South India were affected. And yes, I am coming to that. I am coming to that. Don't worry about that. I'll extend the not let us complete and then end the class. Fine. Don't worry about that. I'll cover up the and then end the class. 2004 tsunami, mega tsunami, Delhi tsunami, Asian tsunami. So all these, and as far as the measures are concerned, that what should be done for this purpose. See, in Andaman and Nicobar, Jarawa tribes were not affected because they have traditional indigenous knowledge related to the signaling of tsunami. See, signaling of tsunami, that traditional indigenous knowledge related to the signaling of tsunami. So that's why they were not affected. And so we can see, first of all, as far as the measures are concerned, we can use traditional indigenous knowledge for this purpose. As far as measures are concerned, we can also not only use traditional indigenous knowledge, but we would be responsible for also using traditional indigenous knowledge. We can also establish tsunami warning center. And tsunami warning center would be having two components. One is what? A group of sensors. And second is what? Second is a communication network. A group of sensors, and second is communication network. Now, as far as group of sensors is concerned, a group of sensor is concerned, this is responsible for measuring the intensity of tsunami waves, and communication network is for communicating it direct to the those areas, communication network mainly to the government agencies for the purpose of evacuation. It can be done, and this should be one measure. This can be. Then also we can see that mangrove. Third measure is what? Mangrove vegetation and coral reefs should be properly maintained. Because one example of this is what? The Surin Island. Surin Island is in Thailand. So Surin Island was not affected by 2004 tsunami. Although Thailand was one of the worst affected due to tsunami, but Surin Island was never affected because of this reason only. Because mangrove vegetation, and also you can see coral reefs are on a large scale as such. Clear, coral reefs are on a large scale, so it was hardly affected by tsunami. Fine. So all these are the measures, and then we can use EWDS for this purpose also. EWDS, early warning dissemination system, which you have studied just now, can be used for this purpose also. So just take a screenshot of this. Before dealing with all other disasters, let's talk about the note that I have provided to you. Now I have provided to you what some initiative. For example, Hoego framework of action I have provided, in which 168 countries were signatories. It was signed in the year 2005, extended till the year, for 1 decade it was uh, implemented. India was a part of this framework, and the strategic goal was to integrate disaster management with sustainable development programs of the government. You know why? Because if sustainable development takes place, disaster risk would be reduced. Then establishment of institutions at various levels. So this was done by 2005 Disaster Management Act. And we can see to include disaster management in programs of emergency preparedness. So that was also done. And as far as Sendai framework is concerned, Sendai framework is an extension of Hoego framework. India's first national plan, you can see first national plan, which includes 6 thematic areas I have mentioned, is based on the Sendai framework also. That in the year 2000, we can see that this, in the year 2015, 18th March 2015, The Huego framework was extended by the Sendai framework. Sendai framework would be lasting till 2030. And then after that, I have made a note on a small note on what? I have made a small note on the national level plan for disaster management. First national level plan, which was unveiled by the Prime Minister on June 3rd, 2016, which is based on the Sendai framework only. So, what are the six thematic area? Although all the things which have been mentioned in Sendai framework has been mentioned in this plan. And then also I have made a note on, small note on the 10-point agenda. What are the 10 main agenda of Prime Minister for disaster risk reduction, which was laid down by him at the Asian Ministerial Level Conference, which was conducted in New Delhi in 2016. Clear? But all these have been provided to you in the form of a notes. And then we can see that as far as chemical and nuclear disaster is concerned, if suppose we talk about chemical disaster, we can see chemical disaster mainly takes place due to explosion in the plant. Explosion in plant. For example, Bhopal gas tragedy. And second, it can take place due to improper transportation of chemicals also. Improper transportation of chemicals. It can take place also due to sabotage. Deliberately it has been done. It can take place due to improper waste management. Improper waste management can also be there, responsible for explosion in plant, improper transportation of chemicals, improper waste management can be there, and all these. Fine. Now, as far as explosion in plant is concerned, the best example is Bhopal gas tragedy. So, Bhopal gas tragedy, we can see that this was not only responsible for leakage of poisonous gas, methyl isocyanate, but also another gas leaked which was called as phosgene. So 1985 is the tragedy, phosgene, and this leaked. Why? Because water passed into the main tank. Water passed into the main tank, which was responsible for the leakage. Clear? So you can see explosion in the plant. Example is Bhopal gas tragedy. Improper transportation of chemical in the year 2017 near Tughlakabad, and Tughlakabad is in Delhi, near Delhi, not in Delhi, near Delhi. Now, many school children fell sick, and that was due to leakage of methyl chloropyridine. This leakage took place, which was responsible for the tragedy because a number of school children were affected. And then numerous examples. For example, LG polymer, leakage of a gas which was called as styrene in 2020. Recently also you can see near Ludhiana also chemical disaster took place. So numerous examples. Now for this purpose, what needs to be done? For a chemical disaster, first of all, the measures which can be that we should be responsible for establishing a dedicated team, a proper communication network, and trained manpower near the industrial unit. So that should be done. So near the industrial unit, all these should be done. Clear? The second thing is what? The second thing is that we should be also responsible for not only this. We should be also responsible for taking another initiative, and that initiative is what we should be responsible for taking initiative. We should be transporting chemicals. Chemicals should be transported in leak-proof containers. In leak-proof containers. Containers. Then also, the third is that roads should be properly laid. Roads properly laid. Now, properly laid roads means that would be helping us in the purpose of evacuation. And there should not be any urban sprawl. No urban sprawl. Urban sprawl means dense population near. No urban sprawl should be present. I am sharing my contact number. And I'll share some notes also with you. Clear? I'll share today more notes with you. Yes, I'm sharing your my contact number because today marks my last class. So I'm sending some contact number. Fine. So all these things need to be done. 981 715769. Ashish. I would be sending some more notes related to disaster management and all, and also some diseases because health related concerns are also asked. And these are very simple questions which are asked in your examination related to health concerns. So I'll send all those things also along that you prepare it hard. So that all these things should be done. As far as take a pic of this. Clear? Take a pic of this. Now see, as far as nuclear disaster is concerned, as far as nuclear disaster is concerned, it mainly takes place due to radioactive leakage. Main reason, radioactive leakage. That's the main reason behind nuclear disaster to happen. It can take place due to explosion in plant. This is another reason. Explosion in plant. So as far as reasons are concerned, these are the reasons. It can take place due to failure of the cooling system. Failure of cooling system. Because failure of cooling system took place when tsunami occurred in 2011 in Japan. So 2011, Fukushima nuclear disaster. Fukushima nuclear disaster is due to failure of cooling system. Clear? Failure of cooling system. So Fukushima nuclear disaster took place due to failure of cooling system. So all these are the reasons why disaster occurred. Explosion in plant took place when Chernobyl nuclear disaster occurred. Chernobyl, 1986. And the leakage was of what? Cesium. Cesium gas. Clear? Cesium gas next. Cesium 131, cesium 136. And why it leaked? Because the plant was shut down for maintenance and control rods were taken out, which resulted in this disaster. But for this purpose, what? Improper waste management also can be responsible. Improper waste management also can be responsible for this disaster. Improper waste management can also be responsible for this disaster to occur. Fine. Now, as far as this disaster is concerned, For now, what needs to be done for this purpose? First of all, you should be responsible for selecting safe reactors. Now, what needs to be done? So, first measure is what? That safe nuclear reactors. Clear? For example, suppose this is a safe nuclear reactor which is called as what? Which is called as EPR. That is European pressurized reactor. Reactor. EPR. European pressurized reactor. And European pressurized reactor would be established by a company called Ariva in India, and that would be established at Jetapur. Jetapur is where? Jetapur is in Maharashtra. And what are the precautionary measures which have been taken? There are four containment walls. Four containment walls. So if suppose leakage takes place from one wall, it would be protected by another. So four containment wall to prevent any kind of leakage. And that's not only. There are two parallel concrete wall over it. Parallel concrete wall over it. So you can see two parallel concrete wall over it. And why two parallel concrete walls have been established over it? Now this is for the purpose of disallowing the impact of aeroplane landing or takeoff. Clear? So two parallel concrete walls have been established over it. So that's the EPR, European pressurized reactors. So that's the first thing. The second thing that you have to know is the second thing which can be done, and particularly for the waste management. So for waste management, what we would be doing? Nuclear waste. How to tackle that? Now we would be immersing this waste in an airtight container. So this is suppose the nuclear waste, and it would be immersed along with inert gases so that no reaction takes place. Now this method of storage, and then it can be placed underground. This method of storage is called as what? It's called as dry cask storage. Dry cask storage. Beside your notes and classroom materials, should we follow anything else? Go through the newspapers mainly. Not anything else. Newspapers only. I suggest you. Because all the things which I am accumulated, I have assimilated all the contemporary issues and made my notes. And there's no notes as such with me. I only remember, and then all these things flow in the class. So that would be the only thing. Let me complete. So that would be done. Dry cask storage would be done. And this can be immersed. This can be put inside. It can be placed underground for the purpose of storage. So this is called as dry, and nothing will happen because it won't be reacting. And then we can use a device which is called as dosimeter. Dosimeter is to check radiation levels. If suppose the radiation levels enhance, it means that disaster is going to take place or already has happened. Blast in Lebanon would be considered, and some consider it not as a nuclear disaster but as a chemical disaster only. It's just an accident, don't have to mention here. You have many examples in India to mention. Bhopal gas tragedy, then leakage of methyl chloropyridine, leakage of styrene, 2020 LG polymer industry in Visakhapatnam. What more you want? Now also we can see that all these are the measures which can be taken for nuclear disasters. Take a screenshot of this also. Screenshot of this also. Find measures which can be taken for nuclear disaster. Now, next thing. Next thing that you have to know is uh, one more disaster. Let's cover up two disasters. Cover up. One is called as rail accidents because rail accidents are in news. And second, let's cover up. Also, I'll share a video with you of mine related to rail accident, which I have made. That's very, and that is about Raksha Kavach. Clear? So that's about Raksha Kavach. So I'll just share 1 second. Fine. This is Raksha Kavach. Raksha Kavach is what? Anti-collision device. So that's called as Raksha Kavach. And Raksha Kavach means that this is based on GPS, Global Positioning System, and also GPRS. So the communication is between the train and the controlling centers, and between the train and the satellite also. And we can see that not only audio but video messages are given to the driver to stop the train. Otherwise, it would be resulting in accident. It would be resulting in accident. So the train stops automatically. Now, one of the reasons why rail disaster occurred in Odisha recently, the Coromandel Express, was that Raksha Kavach was not installed in these trains. Although it's installed in some part of the Indian railway stretch, but not in all parts. So it should be established. But rail accidents occur due to many reasons. One reason for rail accident to occur is unmanned crossing. That's the main reason. Collision between two trains is another reason. Earlier also Purushottam Express collided with another express at Firozabad. So that was another disaster earlier. But now one of the biggest disaster has taken place, and that is Coromandel. Now this was due to improper signaling. And also, one can say not only improper signaling, but also due to mismanagement. Why? Because the boom box also was tampered because of it. This is responsible for putting the trains on the tracks. So this was also tampered because of which, and you can see the recent report also suggests that the improper signaling was the reason behind this disaster. Rail accidents has been defined under the Disaster Management Act of 2005, and Disaster Management Act of 2005 defines rail accidents as, everything has been mentioned in that video. You can see after this class that rail accident is a serious train accident or an accident which takes place in the railway premises, which can be due to natural or anthropogenic activity, and that is called as rail accident. Clear? And removal of fish plates are also responsible for sometimes the disasters. And removal of fish plates are nothing but an act of sabotage which has been deliberately done by antisocial elements. So that can be responsible for rail accidents to take place. Now, what needs to be done is that proper manning of the crossing should take place. Raksha Kavach should be established. The bridges which are old aged bridges, British time in India, that should be refurbished. Clear? So all these things needs to be done for rail accident. Go through this and you will understand. One more disaster let's cover up, and that's mine tragedy. There are two types of mines. One mine is called as what? It is called as underground mine. And underground mines means that mining activity would be conducted inside the underground mines, and we would be going inside the underground mines with the help of what? With the help of a lift system. We go inside the mines. Go inside the mines with the help of lift system. Clear? Now, as far as underground mines is concerned, there are mine pillars here. So, and there is another mine which is called as what? Which is called as open cast project, where we can see coal is openly extracted. But this open cast project, lorries would be running down. Here the coal would be openly extracted. But then open cast project is Responsible for what? It is responsible for pollution of that area. Both air and water pollution would take place. Open cast project is also not only responsible for air and water pollution. Open cast project is also responsible for deforestation on a large scale, because to establish a open cast project, deforestation takes place. Now, vulnerability of underground mines is more for disasters. This underground mines is more for disaster. In 1976, we can see the biggest mine disaster took place, and that took place in the Chasnala Colliery. Chasnala Colliery is very near to you, and that is in the Dhanbad district. Dhanbad district, presently in Jharkhand. Initially, it was a part of West Bengal also, but after partition, it became a part of Bihar, and now it is in Jharkhand. Clear? So 1976 Chala. Now, how it happened? It happened due to flooding of mines. Flooding of mines. So there was a water body nearby, and when blasting took place in the mine, that water body was connected to the mines. Clear? So this was due to flooding of mines. More than 300 people died. That was the biggest disaster which has taken place in mines. But mine disaster can occur due to other reasons. Other reasons include what? Other reasons include collapse of mine pillars. Collapse of mine pillars. One reason. Second is what? Second is not only collapse of mine pillars, but also we can see pollution dome. Pollution dome is in the context of what? In the context of pollution taking place from everywhere in that area. Pollution dome. Now this would be formed why? This is nothing but a type of haze which takes place in that area, and this covers that area, entire area, the pollution dome. This is responsible for covering the entire area. So, and this is mainly due to air pollution taking place. Now this would be taking place all in those areas, mainly the industrial cities it takes place. And industrial cities takes place why? Industrial city it takes place because of pollution on a large scale. Mainly it is air pollution. It's not formed by water pollution as. But this is nothing but a dome, a covering which is formed in the industrial areas due to enhanced industrial or vehicular emission. And this is also responsible for generating during daytime photochemical smog. So collapse of mine pillars would take place. Now also the leakage of poisonous gas. Leakage of poisonous gas like carbon monoxide can take place. Carbon monoxide leakage was responsible for Turkey mine disaster of 2014, in which more than 200 people died. Then it can be due to failure of rope haulage. Rope haulage. Rope haulage means this is the rope haulage through which the lift system is brought. So failure of the rope haulage. It can be due to air blast inside the mines. Air blast inside the mines. Clear? So there are many reasons for mine disaster to occur. And whenever you are responsible for extracting coal, that area should be filled with sand. So if you do not fill that area with sand, then what will happen? That area would remain hollow. That can be responsible for land subsistence. So improper mining activity can be responsible for land subsistence. That can lead to underground fire. Because you can see Dhanbad district in Jharkhand suffering from underground fires. And why underground fires? Why it is suffering from underground fires? Because of improper mining activity in the past. Mining should be conducted as per the Mines Act of India, the regulation given in the Mines Act of India. Precautionary measures. Clear? Mines should be conducted. Mining should be conducted. So all these things you have to know about the mines disaster, that how it happens. Take a screenshot of this also. Take a screenshot. Just I'm removing myself. Fine. Done. Now let's move forward. See, there is a disaster which is called as epidemic. Now, when we say epidemic, I'll give you notes related to this epidemic because sometimes diseases are asked. So, one, two important diseases once. Now, when there is epidemic means what? That if the disease spreads in one area and the number of cases is more than should have been at that period of time of the year, the disease would be called as epidemic. Clear? The number of cases is more than should have been at that period of time of the year. The disease would be referred to as epidemic. But if the disease is responsible for engulfing a large geographical area, it is transnational in nature. Large geographical area, it is transnational in nature. Now it moves, and for which WHO says that the world community has not developed proper immunological response, then that disease would be called as pandemic. And as far as pandemic is concerned, pandemic in which we can see zoonotic diseases spread, and zoonotic diseases are those which spreads from vertebrates to humans, not animals to humans, vertebrates to humans. And there are many examples of such zoonotic diseases. And these zoonotic diseases happen how? They happen due to triple recombination of genes. The genetic material of the viruses, it gets altered. And that is taking place due to triple recombination of genes. So that takes place. Genetic diseases takes place. Sorry, the hybrid virus would be produced. Clear? So I'll give you a note on that and some other diseases also. And go through Disaster Management Act of 2005. Disaster Management Act of 2005, I say briefly, was responsible for establishing institutions at various levels. Maybe I provide a note today also, by tomorrow morning on that in your group. So Disaster Management Act. Now under this act we can see that NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, which is to be headed by the Prime Minister, has been established. HDMA, State Disaster Management Authority, which is to be headed by Chief Minister, has been established. Then DDMA, District Disaster Management Authority, which is headed by the District Magistrate, is established. Clear? Some states, they haven't established their own SDRF, that is State Disaster Response Force. But National Disaster Response Force is there, and more than 20 states even have established State Disaster Response Force. Then National Disaster Response Force, State Disaster Response Force, all these are the institutions that you have to cover up. NEC, National Executive Committee. A National Executive Committee is responsible for making the national level plan. State Executive Committee is responsible for making the state level plan. So all these are the institutions that you have to remember in disaster management. Go through these institutions and Disaster Management Act only. So that would be fruitful. I would be giving you some notes also related to diseases, the health concerns. And it has been a good time with you all. Love you all. Clear? And hope that you do best in your examination. So I'll share some notes with you today or tomorrow morning. By tomorrow morning, I would be sharing all those notes. And hope that you do your best in examination. My best wishes are there for you, for all the students of West Bengal and Kolkata. Good luck. Because of paucity of time, we would be ending because there are many things to say. But then in institutes, you cannot complete the each and every topic, because institute is for guideline mainly. Fine. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll share some notes with you.